Hello, in this video I'm going to show you a high-level overview of AvonEHR software. Let's begin by signing in. When we first sign in, the first page we get to is referred to as the home page or the dashboard page. In the middle is a calendar with patient appointments. In the card on the upper right, there's a list of users. This is a list of physicians, doctors, practitioners, providers, a list of people who use the software. And here we have two users, Brian and Linda Johnson. Next, we have a column called the count, and this is a list of workflow items that something has to be done with. And this shows how old the workflow items are. To get detail on what's in this count of 3 items, let's look at the user details box, which is right below. And what these 3 items are there are 0 patient labs to review, there's 1 patient message to review, and there are 2 patient appointment requests to review. So this is the detail that makes up the 3 items up here. We have the column here called since, and that shows how old the workflow items are, so one gets a sense of if one is behind in processing these items. And here we have the card for patient appointment requests for accepting or rejecting patient appointments. In the upper right-hand corner, we see a link to the patient that was last viewed. So let's click this link. This brings us to the patient page, and the patient page is organized in cards. These are the boxes, like so, that all the information is organized into. We call them cards. And these cards can be moved around. They can be resized, removed, to be in any position that the user wants. For example, let's take this diagnoses card and just move it to a new position. And we can just move it downwards again. And we can move this to be anywhere that we want it to be. We can also resize these cards by grabbing onto the icon here in the lower right of the card. We just grab the icon with the mouse, and then we can make it really large or small or any size that we want it to be. Now, once we're satisfied with the layout of our cards, we can just click the Save button. So the layout has been saved successfully. Now, if we ever want to go back to the original position of the cards, we can just reset here, reset layout, and all cards go back to the original position. Now, another thing I'd like to show you about how all these cards are designed is that if there is getting to be a large amount of information in the card, we can either resize the card to be larger, or we can also click on the expanded view. And this is the same information, exactly the same, but this is shown in what we call a modal view, which is a larger view of the same information. So let's go over what all these cards are. In the upper left, we have the patient card, and this is the basic information of the patient. Here we have administrative notes. These are non-medical notes of the patient. Here we have all of their electronic forms that were filled out electronically online. This is the registration, the initial sign-up form. Here's the symptom survey form that the patient filled out in the patient portal. Here are the handouts. A handout is a document the physician prepares that's often sent to a large number of patients. For example, a FODMAP diet or low-carb diet instructions. The handout is created in the setup area when the system is initially configured, And then here we can just add it to the patient so the patient can view it in the patient portal. Here we have the documents card. Now what's unique about this software is this is not just a list of documents that are attached to the patient's record. We also parse out the important information from the lab tests, from the documents. So on this PDF, we've parsed out that the ferritin was low at 30% and glucose was high at 9%. And these are based on functional ranges or ideal ranges or healthy marker ranges that are completely customizable to be any range that you want to set in the setup pages. Here's the diagnoses card, and it's a list of ICD codes for the patient, a list of medications the patient is on. Here are requisitions or lab tests we've ordered for the patient. Now, what is unique about this software is we are tracking the fulfillment of the lab tests or lab kits to patients very, very closely. So we can hover over it, and this was a GI map test from Diagnostic Solutions the physician ordered. And notice we're tracking the exact dates for everything that happens with this lab kit. The physician created it on June 1st. The patient then went into the patient portal on June 2nd and paid for the test. The lab mailed out the kit to the patient on the same day, June 2nd. The patient sent the sample back and the lab received it on June 10th. The lab is still processing this sample and the lab completed test date is now blank, but will be filled in within a few days when the lab completes processing that sample. So we are tracking that lab kit very, very closely. Let's say the physician wants to add a new lab test or requisition for this patient. So we can click New, and let's say we want a ferritin and iron panel for this patient. The slow way of doing it that we don't really want to use too often is to manually search for that test, but it's more efficient to use the columns on the right. Here's a list of all tests that we have recently ordered on any patient in the practice. We can just click it and it'll be added to this patient's record. And another fast way we can get the iron test for this patient is hopefully it's set up as a favorite because we order this often for a patient. So this favorites list is set up in the setup part of the application. And here it is, it's the ferritin and TIBC iron panel. We just click that one time and that is added to the patient's record. Now the next step is the patient will go into the patient portal and they will pay for that test and create that test requisition. Here in the messages card, we have all of the messages that go back and forth between the physician and the patient in the patient portal. Here we have the billing card, and this is where the physician bills for services and can collect payment. Here we have the insights card, and this card is very unique to the software. We don't see information like this in most EHR systems. Let me expand this to go to the larger modal view, and this is the same information but presented in a larger way. What the system here is doing is we are helping the physician find patterns in blood chemistry so we can identify what condition the patient has. Lastly, we get to the all markers card, and this is also something we don't see very often in EHR systems. This is a list of all blood tests the patient has ever had. Let's go to the expanded modal view. This patient has had over 200 different blood tests done, and they've tested those 200 blood markers over 850 times. Now, this is a list of all markers. Let's start with albumin. And they've tested it 14 times, over 10 years, by the way. And the last result they had on albumin was 4.3. This is within the conventional range, but on the functional or ideal range of 4.5 to 5, this was slightly low of 4%. Now, this is a list of over 200 markers this one patient had, and we try to provide a lot of information on the blood markers, such as, this is glucose. So we're providing all of the reasons why this marker can be high or can be low to help the physician in figuring out why a blood marker is high or low. Now, they've tested this over 15 times, and we can get a graph of all of those 15 values. This is over 10 years. So on the left, we have the graph of the marker values, and then on the right, we're providing reasons that it can be high or low to figure out why it's high or low. So that is the end of the patient page. And the end of the video, we're going to be going into more detail, a deeper dive into other parts of the application in other videos. Thank you.